Hey guys, Darcy here. I want to blab at you about a topic that comes up all the time in the clinic and on the chairlift and with my friends and in class. It's called the boom bust cycle. So the boom bust cycle means you go all in or you're all out, right? And that's how we used to prescribe treating injuries. So we used to think like if your knee hurt after a big hike, you need to rest it. Well, we know now that you rest it, the tissue gets weaker. So then when you go out hiking in 2 weeks, it's going to be just as irritable, if not worse. So the old way of approaching stuff was RICE, rest, ice, compress, and elevate. That's been replaced with a much more progressive and active recovery, peace and love. Check out our awesome video on that. It'll be linked at the end of this one. So peace and love is a much more active recovery, and it says we need to load tissue to heal quickly and heal efficiently and effectively. So if we just rest our elbow and we don't lift anything for 2 weeks, our elbow's going to get weaker. And when we go to pick up that heavy bucket or hammer or get on the oars again, it's going to flare right back up. So I always encourage people to not boom bust. If we are going from an injury and we're trying to build up capacity, use some technology, right? Like track how many miles you're going, track how much elevation you're gaining, track how much weight you're carrying. Like use those data points to help guide you. You can also think about percent increase. So if you've been hobbling around and only walking 2,000 steps a day and you feel good and go for a 5-mile hike, that's a big discrepancy. Tissue might not be ready for it. So one other piece of this active recovery is following our programming pyramid. There will be a video at the end of this one that will talk you through that. But when we look at the programming pyramid, it's how we safely build tissue capacity. When we are ouchy and irritable or coming off an injury, we do 40 to 60 second holds. Not only is that a really safe way to build tissue capacity without being irritable, there's a ton of pain relieving properties. So I really encourage people, don't boom bust, man. Don't go all in and then rest again. Really try to be more active with your recovery. Try to gain some capacity and try to push back on these chronic flare-ups of things. Hey, if you think that the Granite team has some interesting things to say on occasion, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel.